Okay, great. So welcome everybody. I'll invite you to find your way into child's pose to get started. And if child's pose isn't working for you, if that's not friendly for you today, please feel free to take any shape that does, where we can just kind of get centered and get connected. And I know some of you like a playlist. So let me offer one. Should have prepared that before. I'm just going to put that in the chat for those of you that want to have some music while we go. And that'll be in the description for those of you watching in the recording. Okay, so finding your version of child's pose, whatever that looks like for you right now, whatever shape you're taking. So maybe toes are together, knees as wide as you like them. You could have your arms reaching forward or by your hips. If you're feeling a little exhausted or burnt out, which is kind of sometimes in January, there's a little bit of like lower energy anyway. We can lean into that a little bit. Part of the energy flow practice is about tapping into the energy as it is, rather than what we want it to be. And so if you're feeling some of that with me, you could have your knees a bit closer and your hands by your hips. That's sometimes called embryo pose. It's just a little bit quieter. And just take a moment to feel into your own energy, into the sensations of your body. The sensations of your breath. Noticing if there is a particular intention that you have for your practice today, or something that's rising up from your body. And grounding that intention or that experience in this moment into the earth below you, acknowledging the land that you're on. Your relationship with it. And some of you may have already begun your Ujjayi pranayam, that little mindful breath. Feeling the breath moving up into the diaphragm, widening the ribs on the inhale, and gently connecting to the core on the exhale, listening for that mild whispering sound at the back of your throat. And take your time to allow that breath to bring you into some movement. So we'll make our way toward downward facing dog, and you can do that by staying here a little bit longer. You might want to come through a few rounds of cat and cow first. We have a good 10 breaths or so to get there, so take your time. You're also welcome to have your eyes closed so that you're really focusing on what you're feeling. And allow the movements to be a little bit intuitive. So cat and cow is generally inhaling to a little back bend, exhaling to round, but you can circle, you can move side to side, you can wiggle around. If you're already in downward dog, maybe you're pedaling your heels out or swaying your hips from side to side. And when you are ready to come into that downward dog, you can spread the fingers, tuck the toes, and press back. I've got a little tiny bend in my elbows. I'm hugging them together a little. And I'm working my weight back towards my legs. And again, that pedaling of the heels can be really nice here. And continuing to just feel into what is the energy saying to you today? What does it feel like? For me, it's kind of low and slow today. May or may not be that way for you. Just checking in. And when you're ready, we'll walk to the hands coming into standing forward bend. Feet hips distance or maybe a bit wider. Knees could be bent. You might want to rest your elbows on your bent knees. Or you could hang down over your legs or have fingertips on the floor, just whatever works for you. Again, eyes could still be closed here. You could be bending one knee at a time, swaying side to side. Just letting gravity take a little bit of the tension out of your neck, maybe. And eventually we'll curl up to standing. So you can lean back into your heels, gather in your belly, and curl up, letting your head and shoulders come up last. Keep in mind that you can come up with a flat spine if that feels safer for your back. You can bend your knees, look forward, and rise up that way. Okay, otherwise just rolling on up. When you get to the top, you can collect your shoulders onto your back. And just take a moment to kind of find your standing, find your feet, lift your toes, spread them apart, and reconnect them to the earth. And let's move into our flow. So inhale, reaching the arms up to the sky. Exhale, diving down to the earth. Halfway lift, draw your heart forward and up, and then step your right foot behind you and lower down your knee. Heart and hands rise, inhaling into your low lunge. And then exhale to downward facing dog. Connect your palms, step back. Inhale to your plank pose. You could certainly do that on your knees and then lower all the way down to the earth. Point your toes, roll your shoulders back, lift your heart, little baby cobra to start. And then downward facing dog from there. Good, right leg will rise to the sky just as high as you like, so you can open the hips if you want to. You don't have to. And step that foot through. Back knee comes down, heart and hands rise up, low lunge. And then forward fold as you exhale to the top of your mat. Halfway lift, lengthening. Exhale and melt. Bend your knees, look forward, rising up all the way. And then diving back down to the earth. Halfway lifting, drawing forward. Exhale, the left foot steps back. Let your inhale do the work of lifting your heart up to the sky. And then downward facing dog. Come forward to plank. On or off the knees. Maybe this time you're doing a little baby push-up, so bending the elbows and then straightening them again. And then you can pull through to your upward facing dog, pointing the toes, kneecaps stay lifted, pulling the heart through. Cobra here is great as well. And then downward facing dog from there. Left leg rises on your inhale, so don't rush. And then step that foot through between your hands, back knee lowers. Heart and hands rise, inhaling. And then forward fold to the top of your mat. Lengthen halfway. And melt. Then the knees rise all the way up. And then as you exhale, hands come together in front of your heart. We begin our cycle again, reaching the arms up, inhale. And dive. Lengthen. And step your right foot back. Lift your heart, inhaling, low lunge. And then downward facing dog through your vinyasa. Keep in mind, vinyasa can be cat and cow if you need it to be, okay? Here I'm doing a little push-up and then pulling through into a back bend. So cobra or upward facing dog are both great here. And then downward facing dog on your exhale. Catch that inhale, right leg rises to the sky. And step the foot through. Inhale, rising into your low lunge. Beautiful. And then forward fold to the top of your mat. Lengthen when you get there. And fold. And the knees rising all the way up, maybe a little mini back bend at the top there, if that feels good. And then fold all the way down again. Lengthen. And step your left foot back. Inhale, rising up. Beautiful. And then on your exhale, downward facing dog. Let's take that vinyasa, coming forward to plank. Little push up. I'm hugging my elbows in there, and then pulling through into upward dog, tiny bend in the elbows there, or cobra, and then downward dog. Left leg rises to the sky. And through. Low lunge. And forward fold. Lengthen. And melt. And the knees rise all the way up. Bring the hands to the heart. Okay, reaching your arms all the way up to the sky. And dive, really following your breath here. Lengthen. Right foot back. Maybe you'd like a high lunge here. Low lunge is great as well. Rising up. And downward dog. Through vinyasa. Follow each breath. Going part through. Downward dog. Right leg to the sky, any amount. And through. High or low lunge. Beautiful. Forward fold. Lengthen. And melt. Rising up. And folding down. Last cycle like this. Half lift. Left foot back. Really completing each breath. High or low lunge. Downward dog. Through vinyasa, your version. Try to keep the shoulders down away from the ears, wherever you are. Catch an inhale, left leg will go to the sky. And through. High or low lunge. Beautiful. To the top of the mat. Lengthen. And melt. Rise all the way up. And then bring the hands together at the heart, or maybe over top. And just take a moment to feel, again, how is the energy moving through your body? What do you notice? Okay, widen your feet apart a little bit. Turn the toes out, and we'll sink in towards a squat. So full squat is coming right down in between the heels with the elbows in between the thighs. Some of you might find that this is accessible if you sit on a little prop, okay? You might not have a prop, might not be working for you. If your heels are lifted, you could put some props under your heels, or you could sit right down and just widen your feet apart, which might be a good option here, okay? So we're just going to be here for a few breaths, a little opening for the neck and shoulders here. So go ahead and take your right hand down on the inside of your leg. Left hand to your knee, roll your shoulder back and gently turn to the left. Then you can stay or take that left arm, wrap it around your back so the thumb turns down, and you can tuck it into the pocket there between your torso and your thigh, or you could actually bind your arms around you. If you're sitting back, you could actually do that around your thigh. Okay, inhale, and as you next exhale, just gently relax the weight of your head towards the earth. Just softening through the neck and jaw there. Okay, and then gently bring your head back through center, unwind. We'll come to the second side. So left hand comes down on the inside of the left leg, right hand to the knee. Rolling open, maybe staying here, or you could wrap that right arm around behind you, thumb turns down, tucking the fingers into the pocket there, or maybe binding the hands if that's accessible. Shoulders roll back and then softening the weight of the head. Notice that your knees are not collapsing in. Engage your glutes to help you keep them open. Good. Gently come back through center. Release your hands. Just bring them through center for a beat. And then sit down if you're not already. Release your legs. Take a little windshield wiper from side to side. Good, and then we'll lay back, do a little bit of work into the core. Okay, I'm gonna give you some options depending on where you're at today. So we'll start with some pelvic tilting. So as you inhale, tilt your pelvis forward, increasing the arch underneath your back. Relax belly, relax pelvic floor. As you exhale, gather the pelvic floor in first, and then press the belly button down, flatten your back to the mat, and scoop your belly button up towards your heart. Inhale, soften belly, soften pelvic floor, arching. Exhale, pelvic floor initiates, drawing in at that genital region, and then gathering everything back towards the heart. Okay, one more like that, or more. Pelvic floor initiates. Good, okay. Softening here. So if that's where you're at today, keep on doing the pelvic tilting, just actively, mindfully engaging those internal muscles. Okay, otherwise we'll add on a little bit. So you can interlace your fingers around behind the back of your head and gently lift your shoulder blades up off the mat. Find that pelvic floor scooping kind of feeling, and then you can lift your feet up as well. Inhale, and as you exhale, tap one foot down. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, tap down the other foot. If this feels quite easy, you can do this with straight legs. It's just going to be a little bit more weight for your core to work with. But whether you're doing with straight legs or bent knees, the focus here is keep that pelvic floor lifting, keep the belly button scooping back towards the heart. Okay, you can take a peek, but ideally you're actually kind of relaxing your head into your hands and maybe looking up to the sky. Okay, keep going with your breath. If you're finding you need to back off a little bit, that's okay. And try for about 4 more breaths. And then when you're complete on the 2 sides, come on down. You can take soles of the feet together, knees open wide, or knees together, feet wide. And just take a couple nice deep breaths into your belly, softening, receiving. Beautiful. Okay. I've got one more for you. This is kind of a fun one. I haven't done this one in a while. So for this one, Keep in mind that you can always return to the pelvic tilting or the foot tapping if that works better for you. This is just a little bit of a different way of kind of getting into the same area. So we're going to lift the shoulder blades up, just like in the last one, and then gather in the belly just like we were doing before. But then you're going to pick up your legs and cross your right leg over your left one. You might take full eagle legs or just have crossed thighs, which is fine. Try to bring the knees right over top of the hips. So you're pushing them away a little bit, and then one or both hands comes onto the thigh. Okay, here's the fun part. You're going to pulse the legs towards the hand, and you're going to resist with the hand. So it's a pulse for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Okay, soles of the feet together or just feet on the floor, whatever works for you. Soft belly, big breath. Good. Last one. Okay, lifting up the shoulder blades, drawing belly in, lift up the legs, wrap your left leg over the right, eagle legs if possible, or just cross-legged is fine, and then moving the knees a bit away. Okay, if you were doing one hand before, use the opposite one. And we're pulsing the legs into the hand, resist with the hand for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Nice work, you guys. Take a nice deep breath. Whew. Yeah, you can stay here or try happy baby. Take your knees nice and wide, hold the feet, and rock a little bit from side to side. Okay, let's let that go. You can give your legs a little bit of a shake. And then we'll make our way back to downward facing dog. So a few different ways you can do that. You can roll to your side and climb up to downward dog. That's a good option if you have lower back pain or you're pregnant or you just want to. Okay, otherwise we can rock and roll forward and back a couple of times. You can cross your ankles. Some of you might be comfortable jumping back. I'm just gonna walk my feet back, and then you can take your variation of a vinyasa. So remember, this could be cat and cow, okay, here, if that's where you're at, or we can take a bit more of a traditional vinyasa. And you may want to pause in the back bend just for a breath or two after that work into the core. Okay, nice work, everybody. Take a nice deep breath. Good. Okay, let's take the right leg up to the sky. Roll your hips open, bend your knee, and just give your psoas a little bit of space here after that work into the core. Take a nice deep breath, and then bring your knee towards your hands, place the foot in between, and we're gonna come into a high lunge. So I like to bend my back leg, hug my inner thighs, and roll up. I find that helps me to find my balance in a lunge. Get my tailbone down, okay? We're squaring the hips and then working that back leg towards straight. Okay, reach your arms up and then bend your elbows into a cactus shape. Okay, press the elbows back, take a nice inhale, and then as you exhale, wrap your left arm underneath your right one. You can hold opposite shoulders, wrap your hands, or I actually quite like baby eagle, which just has the backs of the hands together. It's a bit less of a shoulder stretch, but it's really good for kind of connecting to that sense of midline that we're working towards in eagle. Okay, hug the shoulders down, and then you can experiment with lifting your beak up a little. Don't lose the integrity of the tailbone drawing down though, and really keep digging that back foot into the floor. I like to have my heel really lifted quite high. Think of squaring towards the front of the room. Nice, everybody. Really good. Raul, maybe a little bit more squaring the hips forward if you can. Nice, that's it, you got it. One more nice deep breath. And then softly unwind your arms, return them to that cactus shape. And then interlace them around behind your back. You could also hook thumbs Or if you have a strap handy, you could grab a strap, which is a nice way to open the shoulders here. So whatever feels most accessible for you. And then hug the what are they, elbows together as you pull the hands apart and down towards that back leg, opening the chest a little bit. Nice. Okay, keep that upper body, so keep the mudra, but step your back foot in a little bit and straighten your front leg. So we're in more of a pyramid shape. You might need to widen your stance a little bit. For me, it's pretty similar with lunge, but see how it feels for you. Should be quite easy to square the hips forward here. Lift your heart, and then stick your butt back behind you and come down part of the way. See how that's feeling for you. You might even kind of drape your upper body over your leg and let your fist rise behind you. If that doesn't feel sustainable, put your hands on the ground or on blocks. Press into your right foot so that you're drawing that right hip back. Nice. And if you haven't yet released your hands, go ahead and bring them down to the earth. Maybe you can soften a little bit more here. Okay, and then climb your hands a little bit more forward. If you've got your hands on blocks, bring the blocks with you. Bend your front leg a little bit more, tip forward and lift your back leg up into the sky behind you. Hug your inner thighs. Think of turning those toes down to the earth. Heart nice and low, and then maybe you're going to experiment with one or both hands to your ankle. Little trick for me is look at the floor rather than your foot. See if you can find your core, your sort of center of gravity, like in your pelvis. So good. And then release. Come on down, both feet beside each other. Take a halfway lift. Maybe exhale at the mouth. Let that go. Soften the knees, lean back into your heels and rise up. You can roll or sweep up. Collect the shoulders onto your back. Take a moment to feel, to receive. Okay, pick up your toes, spread them apart, place them back down. Lean left, pick up your right foot and hold on to it with your right hand. And if you can, also your left hand. So if possible, you're interlacing your fingers around the top of your foot or just holding the edges is fine. Okay, make sure you've got a little bit of a bend in your left knee and point your right knee down, draw the tailbone down, and then press your foot into your hands a little bit and see if you can allow that to help you roll your shoulders onto your back. So we're not doing dancer's pose. This is a quadricep stretch and a little bit of a chest opening, but we're not really doing a back bend here. It's more of a chest opening quad stretch, if that makes sense. So you want to feel it in front of your thigh and your shoulders kind of coming back. Nice, that looks great. Okay, and then if you're feeling adventurous, you could tip forward a little bit and kick the feet a bit more into your hands. So this is going to look a little bit more like dancer's pose, but it might feel a bit more symmetrical, and you might not go too far. And then you're just going to release the foot, allow it to land, and come into warrior two. So you're going to let the foot open and bend that front knee over the ankle. I'm just going to turn around. So the left leg is forward. Yeah. Draw the back hip slightly down. The knee is pressing back, and let's open the arms. Turn the palms up, soften the elbows a little bit, and press the thumbs back so that you can feel a bit of opening in your chest. And then just take a moment to focus on your ujjayi. So nice deep breaths into the ribs, coming wide on your inhale. And even as you're doing that, can you soften the shoulders down your back? Can you deepen a little? Beautiful. Straighten your front leg. You may want to tap your back foot in just once, coming towards triangle. Allow your heart to tip down. A little bit of a bend stays in that front knee and opening your heart a bit more to the sky. Nice, Laurel. Yeah. Tessa, it looks like you could lengthen your stance a little bit. Just see how that feels if you step your back foot back a little bit farther. Yeah, just as an experiment, it looks like you've got a little bit more space there. Yeah, nice. Drawing the front ribs back. Just a nice simple triangle pose. This is eternally one of my favorite postures. Awesome. Inhale, and then we're going to dip all the way down to the earth. Spin onto your back foot and let the knee come down. If you have blocks, you might want to put them under your hands. You don't necessarily need them, but they can be handy here. Walk your left foot out a little bit to the left. Turn the toes off to the left slightly, and then sink into it. So after triangle, I just need to lengthen my stance a little bit more. So I'm just going to work my knee a bit farther back. We want to make sure that the knee does not go beyond the ankle. You can untuck your toes if you like, and then press the top of the foot into the mat. Draw the tailbone a little bit down and lift your heart forward and up. So this is a little bit of a psoas stretch. Okay, think of breathing into your back ribs and imagine that you're trying to lift your ribs up off your rib cage, or sorry, that doesn't make sense. Lift your rib cage off your hips and let your breath move down into the pit of your right hip. While actively pressing that right top of the foot down. Yeah, and you can stay here or we can deepen into the hip opening of the left hip. So you can come down a little bit further, that will do it for sure. You can also open your knee a bit to the left. So you can come onto the inner edge of your, sorry, what am I saying? Outer edge of your left foot. My brain is a little slower too, apparently, with my body. Yeah, and if you're finding this one's a little bit too intense for you, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can stay up high, or you could come in and out of it a little bit. So if it's working better for you to work into your hips this way, you could keep the toes a little bit open and just kind of come in and out gently. Okay, one more deep breath here, maybe exhaling out the mouth. Awesome. And then we're going to come back to the hands. If you're down, gently ease up, bring your foot into the midline. Okay, and then I'm going to invite you to do this either in downward dog or on your knees. So you're going to go ahead and extend your left leg back behind you. And I'm going to do this on my hands and knees, but you could do it in downward dog as well. Everybody with me? So left leg is back. And then we're going to bring the left knee in. And I'm actually going to just face forward so you can see what's going on here. So the knee's coming in, and then we're going to pulse it out to the left for 3, 2, 1. Hello, outer hip. Nice. And then extend the leg back again. You can stretch it open if you want. And then land and take optionally vinyasa or maybe cat and cow or maybe a rest in child's pose. Beautiful, everybody. Okay. When you're ready, let's find downward dog. Take your left leg. Yep, that's the same leg that we just had up there. You take that same left leg back up to the sky. Roll the hips open, and again, just give your psoas a little bit of room. Just breathing into the belly. And then next time you exhale, step it through. We're coming into high lunge. So again, I like to come in this way. I bend both legs, hug the inner thighs, and then I roll up. I find that just helps me find my balance and my alignment so much better. And then once I'm up, I try to keep that tailbone tucked down and work the back leg towards straight. Take the arms up and then open into a cactus shape. And then wrap your right arm under your left. Take shoulders, baby eagle or full eagle, wrapping the hands around each other. Gently draw the shoulders down the back. Keep that tailbone nice and heavy, back leg really nice and strong, and then you can explore lifting the elbows up a little. There is a bit of a psoas release here as well. Keep the hips squaring forward. Sort of squeezing a little bit here. Squeeze and release is really nice to do in January as we're kind of coming to the bottom, or we're actually coming out of the bottom of the cycle, but we're still very much in that dark season. Still in our releasing before we build. Okay, and then we're going to gently unwind, come back through that cactus shape, just a little squeeze. And then shoulder release, interlacing fingers, hooking thumbs, or strap if you prefer. Hugging those elbows, letting the chest open here. Okay, and then we change the bottom half. So step that back foot in a little bit. You can straighten your front leg. Yeah. Make sure you've got at least hip distance between your heels widthwise. Opening the chest and then slowly folding down and seeing how that works for you. So sometimes I find it feels really good, but sometimes I find it's just too much weight for my hamstring and it feels a little intense. And if you're finding that, no problem if you want to just release your hands to the mat. So see how that feels for you today. Every day is different. It's not that one is better. We are where we are. So good. And then if you haven't yet released your hands, go ahead and release them. Take a nice deep breath here. And we're going to shift forward into our balance. So bring the hands forward. You can use your blocks for sure if that's handy for you. Lift up the back leg. So there's a tendency for the hips to open here. I'm going to invite you to try to keep them closed. So the toes are turning down, hips are squared to the earth. It's a little more intense that way for sure. But this is the alignment that we're working with. So kind of plugging that right leg in, finding the core, hugging into the midline, and maybe we're experimenting with one or both hands coming to the ankle to balance. And maybe there's a little in and out with that. This is actually quite good ankle strengthening, among other things. Keep breathing. And then release, both feet come down to the earth. Take a little halfway lift and then a release. So maybe a flutter through the lips or a sigh. And then we'll roll up, take your time. Collecting the shoulders onto the back, feeling your relationship with the earth, with your breath. Intending towards balance. So again, thinking about how your feet are connecting, toes spreading, leaning your weight into your right foot, bending your left knee and holding on to it with your left hand and if possible with your right as well. So maybe you can interlace your fingers or you're just holding the edges of your foot, which is fine. If this isn't possible, should have said this before, you can also have a strap around your foot. Okay, should have mentioned that on the other side. But we do what we can, right? So drawing the tailbone down, a little bit of a bend in your standing leg, pointing that knee down to the earth, and then push your foot into your hand and you're just allowing the foot to help your shoulders come onto your back. Not to let the belly come forward. We're keeping the back pretty straight, really. We're just working with the chest opening. So it's kind of a funny variation of dancer's pose that I quite like right now, actually. And then some of you might find that you want to tip forward a little. And you're continuing to kick the foot into the hand, and still the focus is the opening of the chest, but you can add that little bit of a back bend if it feels good for you today. And then we're gently releasing the foot, stepping back, and then opening up into a nice, simple, classic warrior two. The knee over the ankle, front heel is roughly in line with the back arch. Palms open, you can turn the palms up, thumbs back, and just gently open the chest. And just see if you can just be right here for a couple of breaths. Beautiful. And then we'll straighten that front leg. You might bring your back foot in a little, sort of depends on your stance. Tipping the hips back, so you're allowing the hips to actually turn down at first to help to get that hip in alignment. And they can open up slightly, but it's really more like a chest twist here, opening the left arm to the sky. There's so much going on in triangle pose. There's so much that's opening, so much that's strengthening. Relatively simple pose, but it's so beneficial in so many ways. So just notice how you're feeling it today, even noticing if you're hating it today, which is fine. Just noticing that. I'm just here for a few more breaths. Finding presence, even if there's a little discomfort there. Yeah, and that's it. We'll bring the hands down. Let the back knee land and widen your foot out towards the long edge of your mat. And again, if this hip opening is a little much, it can be nice to just come in and out a couple of times, just kind of stay in some movement. So feel free to experiment with that. Otherwise, we'll try this little psoas version. So I've got my toes a little bit turned off to the side. I'm untucking my back toes, and you may or may not need to lengthen your stance a little bit. I'm pretty open in my hips, so I need to make sure I'm giving myself enough space so that my knee doesn't get compromised. And then we're going to press into that back foot as if we were trying to lift up the knee. Tailbone stays long, and we're trying to kind of pull the entire rib cage forward and up. So the work is actually here. It's kind of in the belly and in the psoas, not so much in, well, obviously there's some hip opening here, but the intention is around the back leg. Yeah, that's a perfect variation, Cindy, that you're doing right there. Attanasana is a beautiful alternative if this one's not working for you. Okay, and you can stay here if that's where you want to be, or we'll sink into the hip opening a little bit more. So you can come down a little bit lower, maybe onto your elbows or onto the blocks. You can also open your knee out to the side. So the idea is that your ankle stays really nice and steady, but your hip is opening to the side. So if you look at your ankle, you shouldn't see any wrinkles there. If you see wrinkles, that means you're sickling your ankle, which means the stretch is probably going into your knee, which is not where we want it. And just noticing what you're feeling here. Again, you can come in and out, so you don't have to necessarily go into a super intense pose and just sink into it if it's not feeling safe there. Sometimes coming in and out is a nice way of sort of keeping the muscles online so we don't collapse. Really nice. Let's take one more nice deep breath. Maybe exhaling out the mouth. This can be an intense spot for sure. And then gently coming back up to the hands, bringing the foot and the knee back into the midline. And we're going to transition from here into, again, either three-legged downward dog or three-legged hands and knees. So I'm going to do the hands and knees version. So you're going to extend that right leg back up into the sky behind you. Yeah. And then bring the knee in towards your chest, coming into a plank if you're coming from downward dog. And then we're going to open the knee for 3, out to the right, for 2. That's it. 1 more. And then extend back up. You can open the hip if you want. And release. Take your last vinyasa if you want one. Cat and cow is a vinyasa. One of the meanings of the word vinyasa is movement with breath. So that's why these practices, these whole flows are called vinyasa sometimes. And then we're going to make our way from here to laying on our back. So you can come down to your belly, flip over, you can swing your legs around, just whatever works for you. And let's take a couple of bridges. So we've done a lot of really good prep for back bends. So the parts of our bodies that need to be open for back bends are pretty open right now. So let's see how that goes. So I like my heels to be outer hips distance apart, non-traditional, but that's what works for me. Lifting the toes up, spreading them apart, and big toes are pointing straight forward. Elbows by the ribs. Press down and apart to hug the shoulders onto the back. Do engage your core, but you don't need to curl your tailbone up. Just keep your back nice and neutral, but do engage the core. And then press into your heels and lift up your butt. You can stay here. You can interlace your fingers underneath your body and kind of snuggle your shoulders in a bit more. A variation I quite like is holding the edges of the mat and pulling the edges of the mat apart as you push the floor away with your feet. Whatever variation you're in, do push the floor away with your feet as you hug the knees in and allow your belly to actually stretch open. And then gently release down onto your back. Take a moment to let your arms flop. We are going to take one more back bend, so keep your feet on the floor, but you can let the knees open or fall together, but we're just not going to hug the knees in quite yet. Relax your belly, take a nice deep breath. Good. So we have done a fair amount of prep, as I mentioned. So I'm going to talk you through the steps of wheel. Not for me today. I'm going to take another round of bridge, which you're welcome to do that with me too. We'll start together and then I'll just talk you through the options if you do want to try wheel today and see how that's going to work for you, okay? So they start the same way. Heels about hips distance apart, big toes pointing straight forward, elbows by the ribs. Engage the core, but keep the back neutral. Lift up the hips. Press the elbows down and apart. And I like to take a nice juicy bridge before I try wheel anyway. Interlacing the fingers under and just getting that nice shape of a back bend, kind of preparing my spine, preparing everything for that. Hugging the knees together, pushing the floor away. You can stay here if you do want to take wheel. Here's what I suggest you do. You can lower your hips a bit, release your hands, place them beside your ears, the fingers point in, hug the elbows together. And I actually like to widen my feet even a little bit more, okay? And then with the hips nice and low, you can push into your hands and see what it feels like to come to the crown of your head. And then you can hug your elbows together, maybe widen your hands a little bit more and see if you can straighten your arms or straighten-ish your arms. And then the alignment returns the same, hugging the inner thighs together, pushing the floor forward. Shoulders should be on the back and your head is relaxed if you're in wheel, sorry. Well, in both. But in wheel, sometimes we try to look down. You don't need to, just let the head hang. And then when you're ready to come down, tuck your chin into your chest if you're coming out of wheel, so you land on your shoulders. And then gently lay your body on the mat. Take soles of the feet together, knees open wide, or knees together, feet wide. Let your arms flop wherever feels comfortable and take a couple of breaths to receive. Back bends are so good for kind of wringing out whatever energy is not needed in the body anymore. Really nice for just letting go, especially if we soak up the moments after. Beautiful. Okay, now you can go ahead and hug your knees into your chest, rock a little from side to side. And since we've been working with eagle a little bit today, let's try an eagle twist. Some people really love this one. So you can cross your right leg over your left, just like we did before. Maybe you're tucking the toes behind, maybe you're not. Then tapping the foot to the floor, shift your hips a little bit to the right, and then pick up the knees again and allow them to fall to the left. I often like to just kind of readjust by rolling to my side and then opening my arm to the side. So for me, this is a little too much. I'm just going to take a nice simple supine twist with my knees together. If you're noticing that there's a lot of tugging on your back or it just doesn't feel right for some reason, just take a simple twist like I'm doing. You could even put a prop in between your knees. Just let your right shoulder be nice and heavy. Make sure you've got a natural inward curve in your lower back. And this is a place where you could continue to breathe Ujjayi. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's also okay to start to move into a little bit more of a belly breath here. A little bit of a softer, lower breath as we cool down towards our Shavasana. Beautiful, and then we'll gently come out of it. So you might roll to your side first, which is often how I like to do it, and or engage the core, bring your legs back in through center, slip them apart, and you can just take the knees nice and wide and rock for a moment. And let's do that on the second side. So crossing the left leg over the right one, tapping the feet to the ground to shift the hips a bit to the left, pick up the knees, and then take them over to the right side. Okay. And again, if that's not working for you, no problem, just knees together. Make sure you got that inward curve, left shoulder rests towards the floor. This should feel good, really. Supine twists are known to be soothing for the nervous system. There are lots of different ways to do them, depending on what's going on with your back, your shoulders, different things. Certain variations might not work for you. So again, feel free to have the block between the knees. Feel free to take the knees down a little bit more, especially if you're pregnant, you might just want a little more space in the belly. You can do that for sure, or even take the super wide kneed one. Just make sure it's working for you. It should feel good. If it doesn't feel good, you can always lay on your side too. And again, if it feels safe, if it feels comfortable, perhaps you're working with a little bit more of a belly breath here, a little softer. And then when you're ready, we'll come out of it. So again, you can roll to your side first and or engage the belly, bring the legs back in. And then you can take the knees wide, even into happy baby if you like that shape, and rock a little bit from side to side. And let's find Shavasana. Okay, so if there's something left that you need before we can take Shavasana, if you need an inversion or something, feel free to take some time to do that. I'm certainly feeling ready for Shavasana. So if you want to set it up in some way with the bolster underneath your thighs, for example, feel free to do that. Blanket over you, put your layers on, whatever you need to do. to get as comfortable as you can, keeping in mind that the classical laying on the back Shavasana shape isn't comfortable for everybody every day. So feel free to, lay on your side or take child's pose or even be seated if that's what's most comfortable for you right now. And when you find the spot, whatever it is for you, take a nice deep breath. Just receive. Again, the energy flow means connecting with the energy as it is, as we're responding, as our bodies are responding to what's happening in the natural world and in our lives. And the work is not to resist that, but to receive it. Take a moment to notice how you're feeling right now. If you're wanting to stay in your Shavasana and you have the time, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, you can invite a deeper breath and some small movements like wiggling your fingers or your toes, rocking your head. Maybe stretching. Eventually curling over onto one side. Traditionally, the right side is said to be a little bit more of a calming direction to go. Left side's a little more energizing. And then rising up to a comfortable seat and finding a place for your hands that feels right. So it could be palms together at the heart. It could be hands over top. It could be hand on heart, hand on belly, just whatever feels right. And then gently bow your mind to your hands, taking a moment to honor and acknowledge whatever it took for you to get to your mat today. To honor and acknowledge the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our practice. To honor and acknowledge the land that we practice on, wherever that may be in the world. and to honor each other. Thank you for sharing this practice with me today.